most people, I think, pursuing a spiritual life are in some ways seeking an advantage. People want to get something for their effort. And in a way, people can be looking for anything from peace of mind, tranquility, a release from suffering, or it can go all the way to the desire for spiritual power, the ability to have control over life and in some ways over others. The interesting thing about spiritual practice is that it can give you all of the above. And that none of that is what you're looking for. It is a misuse of an extraordinary opportunity. Because whatever you gain in this lifetime, in terms of an ability to manipulate and control outer and inner forces, is highly impermanent. And it's impermanent because you are impermanent. And life is impermanent. And whatever you get will have limited value. Let's take the simple version, peace of mind. One of the extraordinary things about meditation is that as you sit still for any period of time, there comes a point where the mind gives up trying to stay in control. You sit and your mind is going, oh boy, what a day, oh boy, I got all this to do tomorrow, oh this is so tiring, why am I bothering to do this, I have so much else on the plate, this is crazy, giving myself over to 20 minutes of sitting still is so stupid, and it just goes on, and then it just kind of gets boring. It just wears itself down. It doesn't lead you to anything, it's just disturbing. And so the mind just slowly goes, it just gets quiet. It's sort of like when you fall asleep at night. You know, your brain is kind of going through the day or whatever it goes through, and then it just starts to get a little mushy somewhere in there. You know, the thoughts that are happening before you go to sleep start to not make sense exactly, they just get a little fuzzy. And then that's kind of a signal that you're about to go to sleep. And then, gone. Well, the mind is the same thing in meditation. It starts to get a little fuzzy, and it's not really important, and you kind of know that, and then you just start to go, and you're in this very still place. And that still place sort of has layers to it. And as you go down into it, there's a layer that I call creativity. And that layer of creativity is very powerful. And you start to see things in a whole different way than you do with your normal rational mind. You start to see things from a different perspective. And as a writer, I used to go into that space regularly because it was where my inspiration would come from. It was where the unexpected would arise. It was where the directives would come from. And so as I would meditate, I would start to go deeper and deeper, and the mind would start to let go, and then there was this kind of visionary realm. And all these really remarkable concepts and thoughts and understandings and awarenesses would appear. And it would be very hard for me to let go of that, to go deeper. So what I finally ended up doing was keeping a pencil and pad next to my meditation area so I could write that stuff down if I had to, which I did. And then I was fine. I let go of it, and then deep stillness. And that deep stillness had a capacity to take me somewhere that was like going to sleep wide awake. It was like so refreshing and so still pointed and so beautiful, the still waters of being. And I would just sit there. And the feelings that would arise, the feelings that do arise, are so beautiful. And you watch these things come up, and then occasionally you engage them going, "Oh, I like that," and you get caught in it, and it brings you back into normal daily consciousness. So you go, "I don't want to be here," and you let go. And you go back down into this extraordinary depth of being, a depth that, by the way, can go deeper and deeper and deeper than you're aware of. Just extraordinary depth. But of course, as anyone who knows who's done any scuba diving, the deeper you go, there's more pressure. There's more stuff weighing on you. You need different techniques to go really deep. You have to let go of all of your tension, all of the stuff that's starting to compress around you, and you just have to really relax, equalize, if you will, to go deeper. And then, chances are you're not going to want to leave that state, because it can be filled with such blissful, sweet openness. But something starts to contact you from way up here that says, you got a meeting at 9:40, or you've got to do this, or you've got to do that, and it just reminds you, and the next thing you know, you're rising up through your creative space into this space again, and you feel wonderful. You feel really, wow, ready for the day in a way that perhaps you hadn't felt earlier. And that meditation was really renewing and reviving in every possible way. And in a way, it confers an enormous advantage, because you are going to go into the day ready for the day, rather than carrying your burden of exhaustion and distraction and emotion from yesterday and all the stuff that you've been caught up in. And it's for some people that they've been caught up in for weeks and months and years, or maybe a lifetime. This going deep allows you to be refreshed and to let go of that stuff and reapproach your day in an extraordinary way. There is an advantage to that. The advantage is that you are there to meet what's in front of you. You're not bringing the burden of your sadness or of your frustrations or of your anger and all of the stuff that people tend to bring into the day. You've kind of freed yourself of it, unless as you come back it takes hold again, which of course at some point it may. But there is a momentary advantage that you are now lighter than you were before, and if you can propel that through the day, you will be in an extraordinary place of functioning. When you learn how to have moments of meditation even through the day, it really helps you, because you can go into a meeting, you can be waiting on a table with somebody who's going to leave you a huge tip. But if you are present and simple, you can find a way at any given moment to take a breath and actually revisit that still spot. It's right there for you. You don't have to sit and meditate for 20 minutes or half an hour or 20 weeks. You just go right there, and then it radiates through you. It radiates this extraordinary kind of presence and attention. So when you're in the meeting, let's say something important is happening in the meeting. I've had to sell, my life has been selling movie ideas to people, and I have to do it in a room full of all these people willing and ready to say no. That's their job. They want to say no. They hate to say yes because that means they got to do stuff. They have to be engaged. Most people want to say no to you. And what I discovered is when you come to this really still place, they cannot say no. They are caught by the web of connection, of embrace, a sense of human knowing. It's so beautiful when you really connect with another person, and then your story or your idea or your whatever you're selling connects with somebody. It's an extraordinary thing. So is there an advantage? Yes, there is an advantage of doing this. If you do this for the advantage, you may find yourself in trouble. And the trouble that you find yourself in is that you begin to identify with this advantaged person. You start to think, I am this. And the ownership of that starts to crystallize and create a much more egocentric sense of me. And the more that happens, the harder it will be to descend into yourself. Because you cannot carry yourself, your ego mind, into that depth. You just can't. So I watch people who are brilliant, minded, thoughtful, intelligent human beings who are so caught up in their intelligence, they're so caught up in their sense of, I am this brilliant person, that they cannot descend into a place where they have to let that go. Because they want to own that. But I tell you what, if you go into a room with people like that, and they try to sell you something, their idea for a movie, let's say, all you as a studio executive see is an ego personality with a lot of ideas. It doesn't connect. It doesn't have presence. It's just stuff. And I watch these people who don't understand, why can't I make a sale? Why can't I make these things happen? Why can't I find this thing that I'm looking for? Because they think it comes from here, and it doesn't come from here. It comes from letting go of here. You let go of your mind, and the deeper truth of being floods through you. That's the stuff people want. That's the stuff people hunger for in life. They don't want to hear your brilliant creativity. They want to hear the stuff that wants to flow through from the very source of being. They want to have the knowledge that you share when you are in touch with that space. So, the advantage of sitting and meditating is enormous, because it allows you to find this space, and it allows you to enter into a place of awareness and presence that you can bring into the world. People who want power from spiritual practice have another problem. Power is available to you in the depth of your being. That's where it comes from. When you sit and you go really deeply inside, you are going to learn enormous things about the construct of the universe. You will be able, in a sense, to control people's minds. You will be able to see what people are thinking, what they are feeling. You will be able to find a way to manipulate that to your advantage. If you go really, really deeply inside, you can attain shamanistic power. Shamanistic power is the realization that one is all there is, that you are everything, that you are the clouds in the sky, you are the sun, the moon, the stars, you are everything. And you begin to feel a capacity to manipulate matter, to manipulate time and space. There are not a lot of people who do this, but there are people who can achieve some of that. You can use these powers for good, and you can use these powers for ego-minded purpose. Some of the terrifying leaders of our past century have had these capacities. The ability to manipulate masses of people, to bring them into your focus, into your sense of how the world should work, to be able to move people into war zones, to make people to do. There's millions of things people can do who have access to these powers, either consciously or even unconsciously. There are all these advantages that allow you to move the world and to think that you're actually doing it yourself. If you go to any of these self-help groups, you know, the firewalking groups, the people who tell you you can gain mastery through your intention, you can do all of this stuff. The fact is, it's true. It's true. But at what price? I can only tell you, the world is your world. It's your dream, if you will. You can dream it any way you want. It may correspond to your dream and to your wish and to your potential for manipulation. It may not. It's really not as much in your hands as you imagine. There's a bigger dreamer than us, dreaming all this. And we are all players in the dream. It's a collective experience. This is all one big thing. It comes down to a line that you've all heard before. What does it mean to gain the whole world and to lose your soul? What does it mean? What does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? The idea of impermanence, the idea that this world has so little actual ultimate substance is really important. If you put all of your drama and all of your need and all of your wish and all of your energy into manufacturing change and transformation in the world for your own sake, because you think you will benefit from it, you may be able to pull it off, but it is very transitory. You are still going to be, you're born, you're going to have a life, and you're going to die. Everything you do is going to go away. Everything. Every bit of ego attainment and satisfaction is so short-lived. All of the money that you make, all of the yachts that you buy, all of the airplanes that you have, all of this stuff that you get in life, it all seems like such an enormous advantage to have it. But it will not seem like such an advantage when you realize how quickly it's gone. And when it is taken away, the sense of loss of power, the sense of loss of identity, the sense of loss of who you are and who you were is beyond painful. All is vanity. You heard that. All is vanity. The pursuit of the ego-minded's needs and wills and dreams is fine it's fine, but it's illusory. It has no ultimate content. If you find in life, somewhere along the way, something that tells you exactly what I just said, all is vanity, and you begin to kind of say, well, what's real? What's worth it? What is advantageous in the deepest sense? You will begin to see that personal advantage has no real lasting value, but there is a greater advantage to spiritual practice, and that is the loss of the false effort. The loss of this idea that you can have control over the world, power in the world, or that you can manipulate time and space to your advantage. All of that may be true, but it doesn't matter. It's not long-lasting. It has no intrinsic value. What has value is when you start to go deep inside and you begin to feel peace of mind, stillness, creativity, a sense of a dynamic space in which possibilities arise, in which an awareness of the harmonies and the beauties and the balances of life start to reveal themselves to you. A sense of how you want to share the beauty of existence with the world all comes from this really remarkable layer inside you. And then you go deeper, and all of that fades away, and you enter into this space of profound openness and stillness, and you can only call it beauty. And then, and I talk about this often, the portal opens. The portal, which I usually find through my heart, but can open through any part of your chakra system. There's this place that suddenly goes, and there's nothing there. But it's the most beautiful nothing one can envision. It is so perfect. It is so full and complete and absolute and full of wonder, and as empty as can be. There's nothing, nothing, nothing. And yet there's no place you would rather be. There's nowhere even for you to be. You are that space. You are that absolute, indescribable truth. That truth is the only true place of refuge and safety that exists in the world. And it's deeply buried inside you. And the advantage of going there, the true advantage you gain from going there, is not the power you can get from knowing that. It's not that you can go write a book and become a self-help guru. It's not that you can sit down in there and exult in how special you are. It's an absolute loss of how special you are. There's nothing that isn't special. Nothing. There's just being. And this being is what you are. And this transitory persona of ego-minded construct that you think is you, that you think was born, had a life, and died, all of that evaporates in the vastness of your being. The advantage of that is that it transforms how you live. It transforms how you look at the world. It transforms how you go through a day. You suddenly are aware that this vast source of being is not separate from this material manifested state. It becomes part of it. It's just like the image that they use in spiritual teaching, the ocean and the waves. When you are a wave, you're identified with the waves. Oh, all this action, you're a big wave, and people are surfing on you, and you're having this wonderful time, and look how massive you are, and you're crashing against the shore. But it's a temporary manifestation. If you're identified with that manifestation, great, you're part of the ocean. But if you really go deep, it's perfectly still and vast and absorbing. That's who you are. when you know who you are, this ego-minded named personality is simply not worth all the effort. You love it, you live for it, you work it, you do your best version of it, but it's not trying to build a ego-minded structure. It's to be witness to and alive to the miracle and wonder of every moment of your life. Is there an advantage in that? I would say yes. The advantage of that is you have a remarkable, remarkable life. Your life is full of content. It's full of change and transformation. It's full of an awareness that none of this lasts, which makes it precious. Totally precious. You live in a momentary relationship to creation as it happens. You watch it every second and you go, even boredom, even sitting around in a state of, is this all there is? Sitting around in a state of loss ultimately is perceived as something remarkable. You no longer look to make it all about bliss and joy. It's not about that. What you're trying to find is allowing whatever is to be. Allow whatever is to be. Once you stop struggling with the world as it brings itself into form and space, once you stop struggling, you are at one with the miracle. There's great advantage in that. It's good for the mind. It's good for the emotions. It's good for the body. It's good for all the people around you. You feel one with the source of existence. You walk around as an emanation of something profoundly deep. And you don't walk around owning that because that separates you from it. You walk around as it. And the as it looks just like you, it talks like you, it sounds like you, it wears clothes, it's a completely inhabited reality, but it is full of presence. This is who you are. This is who we are. It's all that we are. And almost no one knows it. And it's shocking. Everybody wants advantage in the world that will allow them to be triumphant and wealthy and recognized and happy. Happy. What's happy? Whoever has been able to sustain happy? Anyone here ever been able to sustain happy? I would love to meet somebody who can pull that off. I remember as a kid going, why can't I stay happy? Where does it go? What am I doing wrong? It doesn't sustain itself. It's a condition. It arises like sadness arises, and like bliss arises, and like moodiness arises. It's very much like the weather. It's just something that comes and goes. When you start to understand that, you're in harmony with the flow of existence. When you're trying to hold on to the thing that's fading away, you're going to be frustrated. Where did it go? How do I get it back? What pill do I take? That's a real problem. It's a real problem. What you want in life is finally to open the doors to all the aspects of you and find that the doors all open into one central place that's called yourself, the source of your existence. And every one of us who opens these doors inside will walk into the same self. And then when we look at each other, you are looking at yourself. And you are looking at yourself not as a judgment, not as this person's better or lesser or whatever. You're looking at yourself and you are in a state of unbearable compassion. Because you know that the self looking back at you often is not aware that it's you. They don't know. But we sit in this class and it's an amazing thing. We look at each other, and after the defenses fall away, which usually happens, and I don't ever have a period with anybody in this class where in the end all the defenses fall away, we're just gazing at the same thing. And there's no, oh my God, what's he seeing? Is he seeing that part of me? I don't want him to see that part. I keep, all the stuff that we do to protect our failures and our weaknesses and our less than beautiful aspect. But no, what you finally see is all aspects. And we're all beautiful and ugly. We're all, perfect and falling apart. We're all everything. Every one of us is everything. But it's just a process that's manifesting in time and space, but emanating from a place that has endless, infinite reality. It's the most remarkable thing to go back to that place, to discover it while you're here, while you can still touch it, smell it, taste it, hug it, breathe it. It's so extraordinary. It's what we're here for. And we all have access to it, and hardly anyone's even looking for it. But you guys are. You're looking for it. And because you're looking for it, I can tell you, you have found it. It's not hidden at all. It's so in front of you. It's so right here. Sit still, open yourself, meditate, whatever it takes, move down into the depth of your stillness, and there it is. It's just there. And then let it flow through you. Don't segment it. Don't go, okay, I get it 20 minutes a day. You don't have to get it 20 minutes a day. It's not ever not there. And that's the advantage of spiritual practice. Any questions?
Well, it seems that Rudy would say, we can have all of it. You should embrace all of it, everything in life. And so it seems that the byproduct of moving deeply into stillness and moving through those layers, your creativity and your spiritual power and all that, where that just seems like it's going to be a byproduct of when you, I don't want to say arrive, but when you're in that place of resonance with the divine source energy. So I guess the question is, how do you know, because the ego is so tricky, and can really create a lot of illusions to make you believe that you're there, or close to it even. How do you know that? Like, how do you know where, you know what I mean? How the ego is
Sure.
maybe guiding the show, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think
No, it does.
That gets real gray.
You need discrimination. Discrimination comes from stillness. You can start to see through all that stuff. And you don't have to have anybody tell you. You just go, oh, that's the ego. If you're trying to hold on to anything, know that's the ego.
Right.
Just trying to hold it
Right.
is the mistake. Let it go and trust. Trust, and you will find your way there.
So any strong desire or attachment to something, an outcome.
Yes, that's always ego mind.
Okay.
When you let go of that, the thing that's needed will always arrive for you. Always. I mean, ultimately, this inner source wants enormous advantage for you, but that advantage isn't necessarily material. It's just a way of being. I mean, I meet people all the time who are there, but they're not, they're nothing in the world particularly. You wouldn't, cab drivers, policemen, I've met amazing people in my life who are just present, and they weren't turned into congressmen or to, novelists or anything like that. They're just people, and they have amazing quality, and that's what you're looking for. And it's not even always through meditation. There can be a million ways to get there. But meditation is what I teach, because that's the way that you can do it every day and get there. It doesn't involve horror, like losing a loved one, or all the, these things that happen in people's lives that start to bring them often into this place. Enough pain and struggle will often do the same thing. This is a very simple way of arriving at the self. And the ego doesn't go down lightly. It doesn't go down without a fight, and it keeps coming back in all these different ways. But then you have greater and greater clarity about it, and you just look at it. And after a while, you don't even fight it. You just go, yeah, there you go. I know. There you are. Because that's all. It's just trying. It's just trying to. I mean, I watch my grandchildren, and You know, it's so interesting. My granddaughter now is at this stage of, you call it watch me. Watch me. So I sit in the chair over there where Linda is, and she stands on that step up there, and she jumps onto the carpet. It's a big jump for a 4-year-old. Watch me, Papa, watch me, watch me, watch me. And it's over and over and over and over. Recognition, 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 recognition. It's a building of ego. That's really what it is, and that's how it starts. It wants your attention, and it will do anything, and it doesn't stop. You know, it's just, so I've watched you, I've done it, you know, I've seen it, but that doesn't satisfy. It's got to keep happening. We all went through that stage. I remember it myself. You know, so that's how this works. We build an ego because that ego is essential to building this construct of the world. And yet, if you can somehow maintain a connection to source, that ego can function without being, how can you say it, obstructionist. It can serve rather than obstruct. Excuse me. And that's what we want. And at some point it will dissolve because it has to. And then you'll just have being.
Yeah, before I came here, I had this question in my mind, wanting to ask you, what are the characteristics of an individual who reach enlightenment or being awakened? And I thought that you answered that through your whole talk today. It's going down deep. Can you maybe summarize that in a little short sentence? What kind of characteristics those individuals?
Well, I think to name it as a singular characteristic is complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone I've met who has had an awakening are still very individualistic as people. The commonality that I have found is when they start to talk about the awakening, or when they start to speak from that space, you recognize it immediately. I do. You go, ah. Everything stops. Everything in you gets quiet. It aligns. It feels, like you want to pay attention. It's very simple. And it comes out usually not as bombastic and I have the truth. It's just the way they speak. Yeah. And you go, you believe it. They speak from a place that's so authentic. It's so real that they can't hide the truth of their being. And that's what I find in these people. And I love it when I find it. Some of them, honestly, I've said this before, are quite boring as people. But when this part of them enters the discussion, you go, pay attention. Because it's our self speaking to us. It's the self coming through. And we know ourself. Most of us have a remembrance of ourself, but we, of course, lose it. You know, again, I'm watching my grandchildren losing that. And it's kind of sad on some level, but I also know that they have to lose it and then re-find it. That's kind of the journey that we're on. So I'm watching very clearly how the building blocks of ego come into play, and yet I'm going to try for my grandchildren, it's kind of an experiment, remaining a presence that they have access to, a safety zone, a place that they can begin to recognize as their grandfather, but also as a voice within them. And if you can do that, then you always know there's a place that you can go to that will release you from the unconscious drama of daily life, the karma-producing insanity of mind and emotion. And it's really, it's really powerful. So finding your way back, there are people who can ignite that journey for you. Certain teachers, certain religious leaders perhaps, certain friends, lovers, there are people who lead you back. And you can hear it in their voice. And there's the thing in us that follows that. It just follows it. Because if you're attuned internally, it's very meaningful. It can also be very destructive. If you don't find that voice, I was reading today about the guys who were part of that awful thing in France. And their horrible childhoods. And the parents who were not there, and the suffering of their childhood, and the looking for leadership, the looking for purpose. And they find it in these bombastic characters from the Middle East who kind of say, You know, in the name of Allah, we need to kill people. And somehow it resonates. It's the wrong resonation in a sense. But I understand, and I think we all do, where that comes from. They're desperate to find that source. And it looks like it masquerades as source because it's so emboldened by this is how it is. And a lot of us look for that in life, and we get caught by that. And then it doesn't deliver. You know, it doesn't deliver us into the space we think it will. It's quite destructive. That's part of the human journey, learning how to disseminate, to distinct the distinctions between the false teacher and the true teacher is a real part of human experience. How do you know when it's there? I think you just know. You know. I mean, I looked for teachers for 2 years, you know, all over the place, all over India and Japan and Asia, you know, everywhere. And then I saw Rudy. And Rudy said to me, you know, I can teach you everything you want to know. And I absolutely knew it was true. How did I know that? I was a stupid little kid, you know, I didn't know anything. But I knew it was true. You know, and the Dalai Lama had offered to be my teacher. You know, all these amazing people, gurus, they just didn't resonate. Rudy resonated. What is that knows? I mean, it may be a gift and a blessing, but I think most people who can get past the noise of mind and the noise of emotion find this space within. And it's a glorious, beautiful space. It doesn't last long for most of us. It's there for a few seconds or a minute. But after a while, it becomes a permanent manifestation of you.
So, you were talking about certain people who you've met who just seem to embody this naturally. So if those people never had a teacher, they never, did conscious meditation, they never had maybe a shattering experience of loss and agony that brought them to that realization, and yet they have it. I mean, say a farmer in Burma or somewhere, how does those people get to that level without a teacher, without meditation, without agony?
It can just happen. It can just happen. You know, there's no path to it. It arrives. You know, David, before he was king, was a shepherd, and the God spoke to him continually. You know, and he wrote down these beautiful psalms that were, you know, real emanations of divine connection. You know, he had an ego problem after that, but he really had some very profound connectivity to self. You know, it can come from anywhere. The problem is, problem is the wrong word. So often when this arises, it's so wordless. There's no way to give it definition. And there's, for many people, no way to talk about it and no one to understand it. I mean, for you to walk around telling people, you don't get it, this is that. This is that. This is what it is. This is it. What are people going to say to that? They're going to go, yeah, okay, this is it. Yeah, you can't get there with words often, and people who try to get there with words and who don't have the gift of words just stop. There's no reason. they can't sell it. They can't preach it. They just are it. So they walk around and they hug people in a particular way. They hold somebody by the hand. They deliver their food to the market in a particular way. Whatever their thing is, they just live it. They can't teach it because they're not teachers. And then there are teachers who teach it, and then there are teachers who pretend to teach it. You know, I mean, there's a million mixtures of all of these things. It becomes very complicated for the student, trying to find who's authentic in this and who's not authentic in this. Who has it, who doesn't have it. Well, there's a divine longing, a divine knowing in all of us. And if you are really committed to knowing that, it will announce itself. And when you announce itself, when it announces itself, the universe starts to move around for you and bring you the things you need. It can bring it to you in magical ways. Magical meaning, I was hitchhiking in India, and I was picked up by a policeman who took us in his police car. He took me and a friend, actually, back to the station, And he sat there, and we talked to him about. I just been visiting the Dalai Lama, and I was talking about all that. He said, "Well, you know," and he started to talk, and it was the most perfect, beautiful spiritual talk I'd ever heard in my life. Perfect. And what it said to me is, it comes from all directions. And he was not a teacher. He was never going to be my teacher. He just let me know that it's there. Period. And he spoke from the heart, and it was beautiful. I'll never forget this guy. He was so astounding. I was there for an hour. He gave me tea and a banana. You know, and the tea and the banana were wonderful, but the truth of his speech was extraordinary. And I walked away knowing that it emanates. It arrives. And when you are ready to hear it, it's there. They always say that. When you're ready for a teacher, they will appear. But you have to do that work. You have to. It's a two-way street. And if you're not doing the work, I mean, it can burst through. It often does. But for people in whom it bursts through and they're not ready for it, go to any institution, any mental institution in America, and you will find rooms full of people for whom it burst through and they had no language, no preparation, and the ego did not know what to do with it because it's ego-shattering. A lot of them will claim to be God or Christ or whatever. In some ways, they're right. But they have not accommodated this appropriately. They're not there. They don't know what to do with it. And so they're just shattered. And that's problematic. But, you know, the universe throws 1 billion seeds on the ground so 2 will grow. That's how it works. That's how manifested life works. It's got all of us, and a few of us maybe will get there. And you kind of self-select. If you want to be that person, they're happy. Yourself wants you to be that person. Trust me. It's rooting for you beyond all measure. It wants you to awaken. But you have to commit to that journey, and when you're really there, and you're really committed, and you really find you don't know how to do it, and you just say, I give up, I surrender, pow. It says, okay, you're ready. And even being ready doesn't mean you're in a purified state that you're going to be able to go out there and just anoint everybody into, you know, perfection. It just means you're someone who now will be aligned with truth in some way, and you can be that, whatever that means, you know? I mean, there's no way. This is not a mass market thing. It never will be. Everyone in this room is kind of in a PhD track. You know, everybody here is at this is not speaking to beginners. I mean, it could, but it's really speaking to people who've been around the block. And getting there means you've been pursuing this with a kind of determination and a hunger for a long time. And I know you have. I've known you early on. That persistency is what brings you to these words. But it's still possible to live lifetime after lifetime not getting it because something in you doesn't want to let go of the you that gets it. You want to get it for you. And in the end, you can't have it for you because the you has to be let go of. It has to fall away. And that's the big moment where the you that wants this for its own advantage falls away, and the only advantage is having no you. That's the true advantage. Anyway, go on and on. Thank you, guys. Major football playoffs today, for those of you who are caught up in that. And I'm recording right now, but this is look. Life is wonderful. It's wonderful on all levels, and we're here sharing it, and the creation of the video recorder is unbelievable. You know, you can have past life in the present tense. You know, we live in a remarkable time, and you know, and I would give it all up to be here just sitting with you, but I get to have it all. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.